Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our first webinar of 2019. Today, I'm being joined by Eric from 7Signal. Good afternoon, Eric.
Hey, good afternoon. Nice to be with you today, Sam.
And Eric's going to be giving us an introduction to Mobileye and 7Signal's new approach to enhancing the Wi-Fi experience. Before we get started, just a couple of things to note. Obviously, everybody is in listen-only mode, so if you do have any questions, please use the questions pane. We've got about 10 minutes at the end, hopefully, to take some questions, so please keep them coming throughout the webinar, and we'll get through as many of those as we can. If for whatever reason we don't get around to answering your question, a member of our team will be in touch following the webinar. All right. Let's get started. So we don't want to waffle along too much before we get into the demonstration. So there's just a couple of really quick slides to give people a bit of background about who Open Reality are and who 7Signal are. So Open Reality were founded back in 1999. We're headquartered in Abingdon, which is in Oxfordshire in the UK. And we're a value-added wireless distributor. We really stress the value-added bit because we've got the dedicated sales, technical and marketing support for our reseller partners. We've invested heavily in making sure that we offer top-notch support for our partners. And we do support every stage of the Wi-Fi lifecycle, from the design and the survey all the way through to the monitoring of wireless, which is why we're here today with Eric and 7Signal.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Eric, over to you.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Thank you, Sam. Am I coming through loud and clear?
You are indeed.
Okay, fantastic. So I'm with you today from the United States, as you can see, in the state of Ohio, just off of Lake Erie. And a little bit of history regarding 7Signal. We were founded in Helsinki, Finland by a few Nokia engineers who back in the day were trying to come up with ways to improve the quality of 2.5G and 3G cellular service. After some success there, they decided, you know what, we think that Wi-Fi is going to be the next big thing. And can we take some of the techniques that we've learned here in improving cellular and apply them to Wi-Fi? And they wound up developing a system and having some success with it, actually moved to the United States back in 2013. And the reason why Ohio was picked is because if you're familiar with Cisco AeroNet, the AeroNet access point, for instance, like the 3702 AeroNet, 3802, these were actually developed in Northeast Ohio by the company AeroNet, and AeroNet was acquired by Cisco some time ago. But as a result, there was a lot of rich Wi-Fi talent in Northeast Ohio, and we were able to pluck away some of those engineers as we built our company. So we are in countries all around the world, and we do have some very large verticals that we'll get into. We'll talk about where we've been quite successful, and hopefully today we'll show you something that you've never seen before in terms of being able to monitor and manage the Wi-Fi experience. So let's just jump right into it. The reason why this is so critical today is because when people are connected to the Wi-Fi network, they have a tendency to just blame the Wi-Fi for everything. And it becomes very frustrating for IT professionals, in addition to end users who just are in a daze as to why the Wi-Fi works well one day and it doesn't work the next. We have an expression that we use: trying to find and fix Wi-Fi issues is like trying to catch a ghost with a fishing net. And it can be very frustrating. We have a tendency to not understand whether what we're dealing with here is a wired, wireless, or client device issue. Generally, we're reactive, not proactive. And we don't have any type of recording of what actually is going on in the air so that we can see how the air and how the climate or the environment is changing over time as devices move in and out of it. And in fact, according to Cisco, most people most IT professionals spend the majority of their time actually trying to address client device issues. It's very frustrating. So traditionally, what people will do is they will look at their systems that they have today. This could be an Aruba Airwave or a Cisco Prime, whatever it might be. And these are great utilities for understanding what's happening from an infrastructure point of view. You're going to get great CPU and memory utilization statistics, bandwidth utilization statistics. You're going to be able to identify who your top talkers are from an application standpoint, from a device standpoint. But where we're falling short is that we don't actually have good visibility as to what's happening between access point and client device. So what we need to do is we need to get out on the edge of the network. In order to see what's happening out on the edge where the client experience really matters, we need to be able to push solutions out to that edge. And again, the reason why is because most of these root causes trace back to the edge of the network where client devices are. Generally, what we're finding is that probably approximately 50% of Wi-Fi issues, they actually trace back to adapters, drivers, and their ability or inability to roam properly. And the condition that we call it is sticky or sticking. A sticky client is one that should have roamed to an access point that's close by, but didn't. Now, those aren't necessarily Wi-Fi problems. Those are client device roaming problems. And with this being pervasive, and we see this across all of our clients, we see this everywhere, where these devices are the root cause of much grief. What we've done is we've then worked on trying to solve this problem in particular. Okay, so here we are. So again, in order to really be in lockstep with where the future is going, and the future is only going to be more devices, the edge of the network is only going to get more crowded. We really need to have an outside-in approach. The inside-out approach of just monitoring infrastructure isn't going to do it anymore. We need an outside-in approach where we're actually out on the edge of the network, where the customer experience matters, where people are trying to get their work done, and that's what we're going to show you today. Okay, so the product that I'm going to introduce to you here is what we call Mobile Eye. Now, Mobile Eye is an app that's going to be installed on your laptop computer. Now, it was specifically designed to use very low battery, very little CPU, and very little memory. This is not some typical agent that's scanning or locking files and causing problems for people. Mobile Eye is doing three important things. First, it's gathering up information about the device. We can see the make, the model, the operating system, the adapter, and the driver version. Number two, we're gathering up connection information. What network are you on? What access point are you connected to? What's your signal strength? What's your data rate? And what are the signal strengths of various access points around you that we'll use in order to calculate stickiness? And then third, it's doing some light customer experience or Wi-Fi experience testing in the form of pinging certain endpoints that you've specified, doing a web page download of certain web pages that you've specified, doing a quick throughput test to an endpoint, we call it sonar, that we give you, that you put into your environment so that you can actually run speed tests to across your LAN WAN and not always out to the internet. So with this solution here, we actually gain a lot of things. Now we have the ability to categorize and characterize the roaming behavior of certain device, driver, and adapter combinations. And this is very powerful because a lot of desktop teams, a lot of network teams, they don't understand how different and how heterogeneous their environment really is from a device standpoint. They think that because everybody has a Dell Latitude 7470 that they're all the same. They're not. There's a variety of adapter and driver combinations that are in those devices, which are the root cause of why some behave well and some behave poorly on your Wi-Fi network. Now, the client app that I'm talking about today is compatible with Windows, Mac OS, Android, and iOS. It is a self-installing package, like an MSI file for Windows or a PKG for Mac OS. And what that means is you can use Microsoft SCCM or any other type of group policy program that you have in order to quickly deploy this to hundreds or thousands of devices in minutes. Just push it out with a quiet script. And now you can perform tests to all of these different endpoints that you've specified in your configuration. This is a 100% SaaS-based solution. There's no hardware to install whatsoever. It is fast and easy. And now what you're doing, once you have it on all of these devices, you are now essentially crowdsourcing the Wi-Fi experience from these different devices that are on your network. And in doing so, you're able to achieve a lot in the way of how people are experiencing the network, why they're experiencing it in either a positive way or a poor way. Now let's talk about some use cases next. There are tremendous use cases. Again, because so many devices are connected to the Wi-Fi network, people have a tendency to blame the Wi-Fi for everything. So if we can actually put a little bit of software on end user devices and we can track the Wi-Fi experience from that device's point of view, now we're really able to achieve the insight that we need in order to maintain maximum productivity and operational efficiency. For instance, in healthcare, Mobileye is on currently around the world on thousands of carts on wheels that nurses, doctors, clinicians may push around in order to serve their patients, on tablets as well. This way, when nurses have a problem and they report it, it can be fixed instantly because we can see where they are, whether or not they're having a Wi-Fi problem, a roaming problem, or not, and we can help them immediately. Not only that, but we can run reports so that we can identify which nurse stations or clinicians are having the stickiest problems, the worst problems with their devices, so that we can help them proactively instead of waiting for the phone call. Same thing is true in manufacturing and distribution. Seven Signal has Mobileye on thousands of pickers and scanners that are Android-based. For instance, the Zebra devices that are used in warehouses, also workstations in manufacturer facilities that are either Android or Windows-based. And again, as those devices are moving around the environment, and many of these environments are harsh indeed, but sometimes we can trace problems back to individual devices that are hampering productivity. And if we can proactively identify them, swap them out or upgrade them or whatever it might be, now we're elevating the productivity for the entire organization. And third is retail. So I know that with retail, you've got Amazon that's trying to take over everything, and these retail establishments they're trying to create digital experiences, and digital experiences need to be quick, they need to be efficient, and they need to be monitored in order to ensure so. So with Mobileye being on these point of sale terminals, again on scanners and pickers or whatever it might be that are in the store, we can keep an eye on how the performance is, and we can be proactive in determining which devices with what configuration are actually performing well and poorly, and take action accordingly. And then of course in enterprises, we do have to just be careful with regards to GDPR. It does restrict our ability to be on individual devices, but in some environments where there are shared devices, it can be a very effective tool as well. Okay, so now I'm going to take you through a couple of screens, and I'm going to give you a closer look of what I'm talking about. I'm going to give you a closer look of what it's like to actually see Wi-Fi device performance from the client's point of view. All right, so check this out. I hope that you enjoy this. So one of the most powerful reports that we've created is this ability to identify the worst performing devices from a roaming standpoint. Okay? Now, when I say devices, I mean the configuration. Using the sunburst here, and I'm going to show you a live version of this in a few minutes, so stay tuned. But using the sunburst, we're actually able to categorize the different types of devices that you have on your network. And through our analytics that we do perform in the cloud, we're able to identify which are the stickiest devices, which are the worst performing devices. So as you can see here, we have a variety of Dell devices and different models, the Optiplex, the Latitude. We have a variety of Lenovo devices as well. And we can very easily see which adapter driver combinations perform well or perform poorly. And then all I need to do, for instance, is come over to this red area right here, and I can just click on the edge of the ring. And in doing so, I have now just identified the list. Whoops, went a little too far there. I have just identified a list of the workstations that are having roaming problems, just like that. And what we're doing is we're calculating the average signal strength and the stickiness factor that you see there, the 2 out of 2. Let me describe to you what that means right now. So the sticky factor, what we do is we take the signal strength of the access point that you're connected to, and we compare it to the neighboring access point signal strengths that your radio can hear in your device. Look at this example right here. So what I'm showing you for the device that we've just clicked into, so as you can see up here at the top, client performance for the workstation that was on the page I just showed you, I've clicked into it and now I see the detail. Now over here, I can see the roaming history, every access point that this workstation has roamed to for the last 24 hours. And you can see they were on this access point, then they roamed, and now they're on this access point and it turned red. Why? Well, if I look a little bit below, I can see that their signal strength was at -80. Yet, there was an access point very close by at -52 dBm. This is not a Wi-Fi issue. This is not a network issue. This is a client device driver and adapter issue. The device should have roamed, but the software in that adapter, the drivers, decided not to. And again, my friends, this is pervasive everywhere. We see this problem all over the place. And if we can identify this problem and then come up with a list of which adapter driver combinations perform best on our network and which ones are worse to stay away from, now we can really start to be proactive in elevating productivity. Okay? So again, we're tracking signal strength every minute that you're on the network. And we can easily identify these spots where you should have roamed indifferent and didn't. Okay? Very powerful, very powerful. Now, I'd like to show you an example in slides of how you could troubleshoot an issue in 30 seconds or less. The previous slide was really being proactive, being able to identify a list of clients that are having known problems with roaming, identify them, identify their configuration, and then take care of them proactively. But let's flip to the other side of the coin. Okay, so from a troubleshooting standpoint, we might get a complaint in our environment where somebody says, hey, the Wi-Fi is really slow, fix it. Okay, now with Mobileye, all you would have to do is look up their device. So in this example, I'm looking up my device, and I just do that by typing in the first 3 letters of my name. Now, if this was a workstation, a cow in a hospital, or a scanner, I would just look up the host name, whatever that was, whatever tag ID or code that it was. I can also look it up by the MAC address as well, which is really nice. I could just put in the first couple octets of the MAC address, it will find it, and then when I click, I'll actually now be able to see the detail regarding your device. And look at this here. So remember what I said, we're looking at your connection information. So right now I can see, okay, what network you're on, what access point you're connected to, what channel you're on, 132, 5 gigahertz. A little bit lower here, I can see your signal strength, you're connected at a great data rate, no latency to the gateway. You know what? The Wi-Fi is performing just fine. That's not the issue. But I would only know that if I actually had this right in front of me for the person who called in? All right, what else can I do? Now, looking a little bit deeper, I can actually see your throughput speed, and I can also see your connection to the various endpoints that we've configured. So when looking at the screen right now, you can see the throughput is fine, the web download success rate to certain sites is fine, but it's slow when I go to a certain site. And this, in fact, could be what they're complaining about. I see the data, I can see that it's taking, on average 3.5, maybe 4 seconds, 5 seconds to maybe load our web page. Again, that is not a Wi-Fi issue. That's not a device issue. It sounds like it might be an ISP issue. It could be a hosting provider issue. The ability to quickly and easily identify, do I have a wired, wireless, or client device issue, is right before our eyes. It's actually pretty powerful and exciting. Okay, so let me dig a little bit deeper for you guys. So here, when you dig into a client device and you want to see the detail for it, at the top of the page is what we call the health check indicator bar. So when you look at this health check bar, there are 5 indicators on it, and I want to walk you through those right now. First is the roaming indicator. And the roaming indicator is going to be red, yellow, or green, and depending upon the color, it's going to tell you whether or not the client was in a position to roam and didn't, or whether it did. Okay, remember what we just said a moment ago. We're tracking not only your signal strength, but also the signal strength of the neighboring access points on the same SSID. So it's very easy for us to see if you were, like we showed in the example, you're at -80 and there's an access point right over your head at -50, that's an adapter driver issue. That's a roaming issue. Next is the Wi-Fi indicator. The Wi-Fi indicator, red, yellow, or green, is an indicator of your signal strength and your data rate. If your signal strength falls out of compliance, if your data rate gets too low out of compliance, then that's going to light up yellow or red. Third is the network indicator. Remember, we have the ability to configure Mobileye so that the device that it's on is continually pinging certain targets. You can put in whatever ping target you want to. And if there's a problem reaching any of those targets, then it's going to be indicated with this status light right here. And then these last two, throughput and voice, those are what we call Wi-Fi experience indicators. Wi-Fi experience indicators are really more like symptoms, okay? If I have a network problem, a Wi-Fi problem, or a roaming problem, then it's going to manifest in the form of a bad experience, okay? I'm going to have slow throughput. My voice quality, like for instance, I'm talking to you right now using voice over Wi-Fi, the voice quality would be hampered or inhibited based upon the other 3 problems. Now let me show you a couple of examples of what this looks like right now. So this is what a sticky client would look like. So a sticky client is going to show red for roaming and red for Wi-Fi. So the red for roaming and the red for Wi-Fi, so you can see here that we've got poor signal, low data rate, and the red in roaming means that there are some good roaming options available, but the device didn't take them. That's why the roaming indicator is red, and this is what's resulting in a bad Wi-Fi experience. And let me show you an example of what that looks like. It's going to be very similar to what I showed you before. So for the time period in question, I can see every access point that you've roamed to. So a lot of roaming taking place throughout the course of the day, a lot of moving around with the cart. And then right here, it turns red. And the reason why is because we were at a -77, and there was an access point that was close by at -50. I would say -77 is probably right on the border. When you start to get that far away, or when it starts to get that faint, that's when data rates start to dip and you're going to start to have problems. But you don't have a problem with your design. I mean, this person is in a spot where they're getting -50 from an access point right over their head. So it's not a problem with your design. This is a problem with a device driver, okay? So I just want to make that clear how powerful this is, and pointing the finger, if you will, in the right direction. All right, let's look at another one. So this is what a coverage issue would look like. So a coverage issue is a little bit different. I've got poor signal strength, I've got low data rate, but there are no better roaming options available. So that's not a roaming issue, that's a coverage issue. Okay, and obviously that's going to result in a bad experience. So what does that look like? So when you go into Mobileye, this is what it would look like. So you see right here, I'm at a minus 84, and that's what's probably causing some pretty bad throughput. But there are no best neighboring access points. I've kind of walked out of range, if you will, and I'm sticking, or not sticking, I've just kind of walked out of range. There's no sticking because there's nothing better to roam to, according to the scan data that we're collecting from the workstation. So that's a coverage issue. That's, really kind of indicates something very interesting. All right, let's keep moving here. So that's a coverage issue. Third, a network connectivity issue. So again, a lot of people will just blame the Wi-Fi for everything. But really, it might be the fact that it's the network. And so we need to take a look at what that is. So just by logging in, and when somebody says, hey, fix the Wi-Fi, you can look up the device on the scanner, the picker, the workstation, whatever it is. And you can see very clearly that they've got a great signal. They're on the best available access point, but the network indicator is in red. And why is that? Well, let's take a look. So here's an example of when I check out the network tab right here in my analysis pane. I can see that I'm really having problems with connectivity to a certain location that I've configured to test. Okay, this is not a Wi-Fi issue. There is some other issue trying to get through a router, switch, gateway, firewall, whatever it might be, that's impacting my ability to reach certain resources on the network. I'm fine everywhere else. Fine everywhere else, but not to this one. All right, now I'd like to show you guys what a congestion issue looks like. Congestion is one of the root causes of Wi-Fi performance problems. And a congestion issue is basically going to look in Mobileye like this. You're going to see that the device has great signal strength, it's got great data rate, it's on the best AP, there are no problems with reaching resources on the network, it's just slow. So here's an example of, I can just look right over here, and because I'm doing a throughput test every few minutes, I can actually see instances where it is just clogged up, congested, and I might use another tool in order to identify, exactly where that congestion is coming from. All right, now the next thing I wanted to do is show you how to configure Mobileye. So as you can see here, a couple really important things to show you. The first thing I'd like to draw your attention to is the SSID control right here. This is where you can lock down or whitelist the networks that you want to take Wi-Fi performance samples from. So for instance, if I check this box that says 7S Corp, what that means is that a device will only take Wi-Fi performance tests and report data if it's on this network, 7S Corp. That's the 7-signal network. So you would put in your 2 or your 3 SSIDs right here, and then that would ensure that if that device went off network for whatever reason, no tests would be taken. It wouldn't taint your database with non-corporate data, if you will. Over here, next, I want to show you the test intervals. So what we have here is we have it configured to take active tests every 15 minutes. An active test is up here at the top. How often do I ping? How often do I run a throughput test? How often do I do a web page download? And how often do I do a voice quality test, testing voice over Wi-Fi? And I can configure whatever ping targets I want, and I can put that sonar anywhere I want on my LAN WAN. I can test downloading whatever pages I want to whatever, whether they be internal web pages, external web pages, to your website, whatever it might be. And I'm doing that every 15 minutes. Now the passive test interval at 5, this is where we're gathering up roaming data. Okay, what access point are you on? What signal strength do you have? What data rate are you connected at? And we're doing that every 5 minutes. Now, to be honest with you, we have customers who have that set all the way down to 1 minute because they really want to get aggressive with gathering up roaming data. They want to see roaming data every minute. And so that is very, very common. Over here on the left, you'll see the Wi-Fi experience thresholds, and this is going to determine whether it turns red, yellow, or green based upon the targets that you set. Okay, now Sam, this might be a good time before we get into our demo. I mean, maybe we'll see if we've got any questions. What do you think, Sam?
Sure. Yeah, we've got a couple of questions. So one question is that the majority of their team are moving from Mac to Chrome OS. Do you have any plans to make the agent compatible with Chrome OS?
Well, Chrome OS is a little bit different. Some people might not even call it an operating system. We don't have plans currently. That's something that we actually are going to look at probably closer at the end of 2019 in terms of how we would do it, because it's a little non-traditional. We would probably have to do some kind of we'd have to create like a Chrome extension in order to make that happen and gather up the connection details, the connection information. So it's currently not on the, let's call it the 2019 roadmap.
Okay. I've had somebody else ask if this webinar is going to be sent out afterwards. Yes, it will be. It'll be uploaded onto YouTube, and we'll send everybody a link, so you'll be able to review that. Eric, I've just passed the presentation over to you, so you can share. Yep, I can see your browser now.
Yeah, so in light of the last question that we just received, I did want to just take the opportunity to explain what we are working on. So as I mentioned a moment ago, compatible with Windows, Mac OS, iOS, and Android. We're actually also working on a Linux version as well. So what we're seeing is that there are a lot of workstations and other carts and IoT devices that are kind of going to like a VDI or a virtual desktop environment using a distribution of Linux. And they're doing this so that they can not only control costs, but also to improve consistency of the configurations. And so Linux is something that we are prioritizing in 2019.
Okay.
All right.
Just before you get started, Eric, I've got one final question about could you elaborate on the GDPR status of Mobileye, please?
Sure. So what GDPR considers to be personal identifiable information is not any one thing that Mobileye is collecting. It's actually the combination of things. So the host name of a computer all on its own is not a big deal. The network that you're connected to is not a big deal all on its own, and neither is location. But when you add all three together, when you take location plus the host name plus the network that you're on, then that's where the compliance issue may come into play. Now, in dealing with some European customers who have corporate-owned devices, they can issue, it's a sort of consent. And in issuing consent, we have been able to put Mobileye on certain devices in organizations that are corporate-owned in order to comply. Some of the features that we're working on to be fully compliant with GDPR include the ability to blacklist, if you will, if a person were to call up and say, I want you to erase my information, and I don't want to have this information taking place, then the ability to add that to the software is something that we're working on right now. But again, in a corporate environment, this idea of a shared device or the idea of giving consent for corporate-owned devices is certainly something that we have experience with.
Great, thanks, Eric.
You bet, you bet. So what we're looking at here, and what I've just done, is I've logged into Mobileye, and this is for a customer who has allowed us to demonstrate how Mobileye is helping them. What you're seeing over here on the left is a map of all of their different healthcare facilities around this city, and this is the city of Cincinnati in Ohio. And they have many clinics in and around the city, many hospitals, small medical buildings, medium-sized medical office buildings around the city. And what they've done is they've put Mobileye on the carts on wheels and also on various tablets as well. And I wanted to give you a look at what that is. And these are the different things that we're measuring. And on the surface, everything looks good in aggregate. Now, let's talk about two sides of the coin here. One is being proactive. How can I be proactive? Because I do hear complaints about people having Wi-Fi problems. One way that I could be proactive is by clicking on the platform report right here. And when I do, yow, I see the sunburst appear where I can see that there are certain devices on the network that are having roaming and sticking problems over the last 24 hours. Okay, over the last 24 hours. And it looks like the majority of them are these Lenovo devices right here. As you can see when I mouse over, it says 63 out of 333 devices are sticky. Okay, now not all, and the majority of them are this configuration. 41 out of 196 have this configuration. It's the Lenovo with the Intel adapter right here, the AC 7260, and it has this driver, 1833 6.2. Isn't that neat? Now, not all of them are like that. As you can see over here in the green, okay, the 9.3 version of this driver, they're not having sticking problems at all. But this seems to be the culprit right here. Now check this out. If I wanted to generate a list of who those devices are, those 41, because I wanted to take a look and see that, okay, if they're on 6.2, it looks like I need to get them to 9.3. Who are they? I just click on the outer ring and watch what happens. Boom. Out of 196, it just runs a report and it bubbles to the top all of the workstations that are having problems. And now I can identify them. These are all of the, these are like the cows, the carts on wheels that nurses and clinicians are rolling around. And I can see that they're having some major sticky problems, okay? Now, how sticky? How sticky? Well, this person right here in this workstation, 10 out of 778 samples were sticky. This one is 15 out of 773. So you know what? We're gonna click on him right here. And when I do, it's gonna bring up detail for that individual's cart for the last 24 hours in this hospital. And this really tells a story. This is great. All right, so I can see precisely when the stickiness took place just by mousing over the timeline. I can see it, okay? I can see it right here. Over here on the right, I can mouse over these access points. I can see the name of the access point, okay? When it was sticky right here. If I scroll down a little bit, look at this. I can see that I was at a minus 80. Look in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. I'm looking at signal strength, minus 80, and there were two other access points close by, one at minus 55 and one at minus 53 dBm. And I can see the names of those access points as well. So again, not a problem with the design. This is a problem with a sticky client. And it's really nice because if I scroll down a little bit here, I can see, yeah, this is one of those clients that has this configuration, the 1833 6.2, seems to be pretty sticky compared to the other ones. Okay, so that's really fascinating. Now, you might be saying to yourself, well, is there a way for me to just get a list of everybody who has 18.33.6.2 so I can kind of pick them off and upgrade them one by one and proactively improve the situation? The answer is yes. Let me show you. So I go over here to report. And now I'm going to go up here and watch this. I've got a bottom 20 clients for roaming report, but what I'm going to show you is the bottom 20 adapters for roaming report. Watch this. Bingo. Oh, there it is. It's the first one on the list. So the 7260, the 1833 6.2 is the worst performing adapter driver combination on our network. And look at this. These are the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 clients that are the worst. I'm going to pick them off first. I've got the name of the clients right there. And I can just work my way down the list. You know, the next bad one is this one. This is a really old adapter driver right here for the same adapter, a really old driver. And it just continues. And I can see on my network what are the worst performing adapter driver combinations and who has them. Okay, who has them? You know, sometimes when it's a shared device, maybe a person in the warehouse reports that their device was having a problem, and then somebody else uses it the next day. Well, wouldn't it be nice if we just had the name of the device right here so that we can take care of it, so that no matter who uses that device, they wind up having a much better experience. Okay. Another report that I want to show you. Okay, so again, we can do this a little bit differently by looking at bottom 20 clients roaming. So this will just switch it around so that now I'm looking at the clients in the first column. This is my stickiest client of them all right here. Okay, and I just go right down the list. And again, I can click on any of these and it's going to take me to a device detail page to show me precisely where they were getting sticky. So really not having problems at all for the last 24 hours. And then just now, they started having problems. Look at that. Just now, they're on this access point right here. I can see the name of it. It's the 4S 401006, channel 153. Look at this. Now look at their signal strength. Minus 95. Are you kidding me? Minus 80. And look at all of the access points that they could have roamed to and didn't. So having this in front of you, it's just so enlightening. It just opens up a whole world to understanding what's really happening in your environment. And of course, I can click over here to the Wi-Fi tab and look at this. I can track their signal strength all throughout the course of the day and their data rate, steady, 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 and then boom, took a dive. Look at that, minus 78. Okay. Minus 78. I can go over to the network tab and I can track this person's latency to various endpoints that have been specified. So you can see here they have some internal IP addresses like the electronic medical record server, which is on this 10 network. This one is this 172 address, and they can track it. From a throughput standpoint, I want to make sure that my doctors and nurses are always getting really good throughput. Look at this. I'm tracking throughput, 50 megabits of throughput. This is looking great. Okay. So even though they were sticky, it looks like they were still, now you can see here's where it was sticky. It dropped down to 11 megabits of throughput up and 7 megabits down. Not horrible, but maybe horrible for them in their environment if they're trying to upload or download, huge radiology files and it's taking a little bit longer than usual. Okay, because then a few minutes later, it boosted right back up to triple that. The other thing I wanted to show you here, down here, is that we are able to track every channel that you're on, okay? Every access point that you've roamed to. And this is really interesting because sometimes we can see where you're connected to 2.4 and you shouldn't be. It's like, whoa, why are you on channel 6? That doesn't make any sense. Again, that's probably a device driver issue that's making the choice to stay on 2.4 and not roam to 5. And now it's all right in front of you. It's really nice. Going back to reports, there's one other report that I wanted to show you. Maybe two. In this client platform report right here, let's click on him. Think of this report as almost like an inventory. It shows you, and again, we're just looking at the last 24 hours, but it shows you all the different types of devices that we have monitoring on your network, the configuration, and we're also throwing in a throughput test to kind of show the average speed or performance of those devices with that adapter driver combination. So let me give you an example. Okay. So if I scroll down a little bit here, you can see that I've got 334 Lenovo devices. One of them is this model, the 10AA S3R, and it has this adapter driver combination in it. Okay. And then a bunch of them, 19 of them, look at this. I've got 3 different versions of the driver for this one adapter right here. Isn't that amazing? If I keep scrolling here, I can see that there's even more combinations and variations. So again, our desktop teams, they think that everything is homogeneous, but it's not. It is not. And these different devices, they perform differently depending upon the circumstances. Okay. Look down here. Here's a device that's has an old wireless N adapter in it. And it is clearly getting far less throughput on average than everybody else. Look at that. 12 and 26 versus up here, these guys are in the 80s, the 70s. So whoever is using this device is consistently having slower performance. Really remarkable to get this kind of visibility. I can also filter by different networks and locations. So if I just want to see what's going on, for instance, at the Montgomery Road location, which is a small clinic, there you have it right there. I've got one device out there and I can see the performance of that device. And I can do this for any of my reports. If I wanted to run a report, which were the bottom 20 clients for download throughput in Montgomery, there it is right there. Maybe I wanted to do it for Clough Pike. There you have it right there. I've got one client out there on Clough Pike, and they're roaming around all of these different access points on these different channels, and I can see their performance. There they are. So maybe the clinician called up and said, I'm having trouble. I'm out here at Clough Pike. I can click on their device right here, and now I have a complete assessment. So this is them using their computer yesterday, and then they go to bed, and they wake up in the morning, and there you go, 8 a.m. They started their day, and everything is looking good so far. So there you have it. Last thing I wanted to show you again is this configuration page. So here, this is where they've configured their active tests, the different endpoints that they want to continually test. The sonar is basically how they're running their throughput tests. They're controlling the different networks that they actually want to do tests on. You can see that they're doing active tests, like a throughput test every 30 minutes. That seems to be fine for them. But they have their passive tests, which is gathering up the roaming data every 2 minutes. So they're quite aggressive with that because that's really their big issue that they have. Okay. Now with that, what I'd like to do now is basically hand it back over to Sam. I did want to bring up this slide here with regards to next steps. And Sam, perhaps have you talk about it a little bit. But Sam, I'm really hoping that the folks today on the line saw something that they haven't seen before. They've seen something unique that could really help improve operational efficiency in their organizations.
Yeah, thank you, Eric. That's been a fantastic walkthrough there of the solution. If anybody has any questions, please put them through now, and we'll get to them once I've just talked through this slide. So in terms of next steps, if you would like to find out more, obviously there's a whole bunch of information and resources at 7signal.com and on our website as well, openreality.co.uk. We'd be more than happy to book a one-on-one demo if you'd like to explore a particular area in more detail, or you'd like to show some of your colleagues. That's something we can obviously set up for you. We do obviously offer proof of concepts as well. If that is something you'd like to trial the solution, then please get in touch with a member of our team. And if you're interested in becoming a 7Signal reseller partner in the UK, again, please get in touch with our wireless team. Their details are on the screen now, and they'd be happy to help you. So Eric, I've got a couple more questions for you. We've got a few minutes left. The first one is, could you talk about any integration with Cisco Prime, if there is some?
Well, we don't have any integration with Cisco Prime per se. We really do like the kind of separation of towers, if you will. It does assist in maintaining the objectivity. We are a platform independent solution, agnostic to any vendor. We do work, it doesn't matter what network you have, we can install our system and start monitoring it. We do have one integration where you can provide us a list of access points. It's just a simple report that you can print from your controller, and then we will just simply, we have a job that we run where we can actually then load the list of all of those AP access point names and base MAC addresses into the system. And then you would actually be able to see all of your access points with their unique names, just like I was showing you a few moments ago. So we do like to remain somewhat neutral, Switzerland, if you will, and that seems to be working well for us.
Great. Someone's asked about a specific use case. A lot of their clients are hotels. How would 7-Signal Mobileye work in a sort of hotel environment?
Well, Mobileye, if there are, and in some hotels they do have these kiosks or these point of sale or these touchscreen kiosks where you come in and you basically can check yourself in, check yourself out, maybe inquire as to certain resources that are available. And as long as those are, generally they're either an Android operating system or a Windows operating system, we can install 7-Signal Mobileye on those devices. And then in that manner, you basically from your home base would be able to see the wireless performance of those kiosks, or it could be tablets that a concierge uses. You'd be able to see that performance across the entire hotel network, so that if you were to get a phone call, you'd actually be able to look up the device and see what the problem is. Is it that they are, is it a roaming problem? Is it a network problem? Is it a device driver problem? So there definitely is a use case for hotels.
It's probably also worth mentioning that you also have your Sapphire Eye product as well.
Yeah, I think that's definitely worth mentioning in this scenario. So the Sapphire Eye is a unit that we've created, and that unit is a high-performance client. We would put that client in, for instance, the hotel lobby or wherever you'd like, and that, almost like a sentinel, is monitoring the Wi-Fi experience 24 hours a day. It has much more capability. Not only is it monitoring the data rates of various clients that are out there in the lobby, for instance, but it also has the ability to detect interference and congestion, and then report back to you wherever you are at headquarters that this property is having congestion issues or interference issues, and it would be able to help you identify those issues proactively with alerts and notifications. So that may be a more ideal solution when it comes to the hotel use case, Sam.
Yeah. For more information about Sapphire Eye, I would refer you to 7signal.com. There's a whole bunch of information about that. We have previously done webinars on that solution in particular as well, which I can distribute a link to when we send out the recording for this one if people would like to find out more about that. Okay, I think we've got time for a couple more. Someone's asking about integration with Ekahau Wi-Fi design tools.
Sure. So actually, our Sapphire Eye, there's an integration with Ekahau in that we've partnered with Ekahau. We've given them our antenna patterns for our Sapphire Eye, which is the client unit that I just described. And so in doing so, when you are using the Ekahau Sidekick or site survey tool, you're actually able to determine where the best placement is for a Sapphire Eye in your environment based upon your design. It's really quite fascinating and seems to work really well. One thing that I'll say about Ekahau and what I'll say about Wi-Fi in general is that it really starts with good design. You have to have a good design. You really, if you're not using Ekahau tools in order to ensure a good design, then there's no amount of Wi-Fi monitoring that can really help you. I mean, sometimes what our solution will do is reveal a bad design, but then you need to address the design in order to really get the performance that people need in order to do their jobs. The reason why Mobileye is so powerful is because devices are always changing, and they're always moving. And so to be able to get what the experience is out on the edge of the network on the device where the Wi-Fi experience is actually taking place is really quite valuable in either verifying a design, making modifications to devices in order to work in concert with that design, and etc.
Fantastic. I think that's a really good place to wrap up. I'd like to thank everybody for attending. Thank you for those that submitted questions to us. Obviously, thank you to Eric for a fantastic presentation there and a demonstration. The recording of the webinar will be sent to you probably tomorrow. And in the meantime, have a great afternoon and speak to you soon.
Outstanding. Thank you, Sam. It was my pleasure to be here today. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, Eric. Bye-bye.